Tonight, Michael Cohen is back in the news, and that could be more bad news for President Trump. We're getting our first look at newly unsealed documents regarding the case against the president's former attorney and fixer. A former federal prosecutor joins us to help sort it all out. Then the House Transportation Committee wants to hold hearings into the Boeing jet crashes that happened just 5 months apart, and subpoenas could be issued shortly. A member of that committee joins us to weigh in. Also, Congressman Peter King is here to talk about a major infrastructure project that would help everyone in our viewing area. And he'll also explain why he supported President Trump's emergency declaration to get border wall funding. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman in tonight for Richard French. A treasure trove of documents about Michael Cohen has just been unsealed, and they show how prosecutors have been probing him for years. Michael Cohen, President Trump's former longtime personal attorney, came under suspicion almost from the moment Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel. Newly released court records show the special counsel's office sought Cohen's email in July 2017 because prosecutors suspected him of bank fraud, perjury, and other illegal activity. As Donald Trump took office, the documents show, Cohen was $22 million in debt and started shopping his access to the new president to a range of businesses, including some based overseas in possible violation of lobbying laws. The special counsel referred their findings to federal prosecutors in New York, who arranged the raid last April on Cohen's home and office, as well as searches of his email and electronics.
Michael Cohen was the gatekeeper of Donald Trump's deepest, darkest secrets. He was as close as anyone to the president himself before he became president, privy to all manner of information around his business interests and the beginnings of his political career.
Ultimately, Cohen pleaded guilty to financial and campaign finance crimes and is going to prison for 3 years. Portions of the documents involving campaign finance violations were entirely redacted. Assigned federal prosecutors in New York continue to investigate hush payments to women who had accused Trump of affairs years earlier.
They're independent, aggressive, and fearless, and they don't care who you are, how powerful you are. If the law and the facts support it, they will do the right thing.
Yeah.
And they are also not limited in the same way that Bob Mueller was.
Cohen told Congress he's still cooperating with prosecutors as they look into other possible crimes involving the president. He's due to report to prison May 6th. In related news, CNN is reporting the White House lawyers now expect to see Bob Mueller's reports before they are sent to Congress. Multiple sources telling CNN that the White House wants to have the opportunity to claim executive privilege over what Mueller releases. If that happens, Democrats would almost certainly challenge that in the courts. Joining me now to discuss that and more, former federal prosecutor Stanley Twardy. Stan, let's start with the Cohen emails that were unsealed and released today. And perhaps the biggest takeaway is that investigators seem to have a lot of information, much of which has not been made public, about campaign finances, including an entire section labeled Illegal Campaign Contribution Scheme. Seems pretty clear that's the payoffs to Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. And we know that Trump is involved because in the Cohen case, he was referred to as individual one in Mueller's court filings on Cohen. So do the Cohen emails released today make it more likely in your mind that Mueller has Trump in his sights, if only just on the campaign finance violations?
I think it was clear from the indictment or the information that Cohen pled guilty to that the special counsel has the president's actions in connection with the contributions to Daniels and McDougal in its sights. What I thought was fascinating today was the amount of information that was redacted. That while we know that because of the application of the search warrants, certain information we saw there, but a lot of it was redacted. Other thing I found fascinating is how much information the government got, because in addition to the search warrants that were executed that we knew about at Cohen's offices, we now know that they had permission to go after his Google account, after his cell phones, tracked his phones and taped calls. So there was quite a bit that came out today as a result of Judge Paley's decision releasing portions of what had been done in the Cohen matter today.
You said it looks like Mueller has Trump in his sights. A lot of people might be wondering when they hear that what that means, how that ends, because it seems pretty cut and dry to a lot of people that Trump paid for those payoffs that then influenced the election and were an illegal campaign contribution. Does that make it more likely that Mueller's going to come out and say Trump committed this, he's guilty of this, or we think he is, or he should be prosecuted for this?
Well, we know that under the Department of Justice guidelines, the sitting president won't be indicted. So I think it really is more going to be what is in the report. And I think that we will see quite a bit about this in the report, that the president will be referred to as the president as opposed to individual one in the final report here. But I think it's clear this is just further proof that is something that the special counsel is looking at.
I did not see that much else in the release of the Cohen emails that I thought was important to the end game of all this and how it all plays out. Then again, I'm not a former federal prosecutor and you are. What did you see from those releases?
Well, what I saw there was the information that they had on Cohen even before Cohen started cooperating. And we know that at the time that Cohen pled guilty, that he had spent numerous days talking with not only the special counsel's office, but with the Southern District of New York and with the Attorney General of the state of New York. And so whether or not it's information he gave them on the president, and we heard a lot of that when Cohen testified before Congress a few weeks ago, that we saw a preview of what he had told the prosecutors. But it's also going to be what he's telling about other people around the president and what their fate might be for them. That we may not be done with the people being charged here with the various trails that we saw that the government was looking at.
Let's shift over. CNN reporting today that the White House, or people in the White House, now expecting to see the Mueller report or whatever secondary reports that Attorney General William Barr sends to Congress before they're sent. Now, seeing the reports isn't that much of an issue. There are legitimate concerns about presidential privilege and the release of classified information. The real fear is that the White House might either change or influence or block portions of the reports without cause. Are there any safeguards in place that would ease those worries? Will we even know if the White House tries to impede whether that action is justified or not?
One of the things that we've known for a while is that there is information that could be in the report that is protected by Rule 6C of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. Basically, that is that a grand jury testimony cannot be released absent court orders. We also know that there are perhaps sources of information whose identities need to be protected. And I think it is legitimate that the White House have an opportunity to be heard on this issue. But they have an opportunity to be heard. It's something that the special counsel, Mr. Mueller, can push back at, and it's also something that the Attorney General can push back at. And again, I had the pleasure of knowing Bill Barr when he was in the first Bush administration as Attorney General. He's a man of great principle. And I think he will, I'm confident, he will make public or have made public everything that can be made public without compromising the laws or individuals.
So you have a lot of confidence in the decision-making of Attorney General Barr, but he's an unknown quantity to a lot of people. So if the White House does issue a questionable challenge, A, will the public know about it? And B, do we know exactly what will happen or how it'll be disposed of? Will that all happen behind closed doors?
Well, ultimately, we will know about it because the House of Representatives will follow up on everything that's done here, and whether or not it's in a public hearing or a closed hearing, the Congress will get at this. Whether or not we know at the end of the day, I'm not sure. I have reason to think that we will, or certainly will know what we don't know. By that meaning that we'll know what was been made public and what hasn't been made public. And I certainly hope, for the good of the American public, that everything is made public so the public can make its own determination as to what the special counsel has found and what actions the president and those around him took.
Other related news today, Stan, that is that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein will now be staying at the Department of Justice longer than anticipated. His original departure was pegged, we believed, to Mueller finishing his report. I take it to mean, and I assume a lot of people do, that there must be more coming from Mueller if Rosenstein is staying, as opposed to those rumors that he was almost done. Do you agree with that view?
Not necessarily. I know that Attorney General Barr had originally asked Rosenstein to stay over to help with the transition. And remember that he has a lot on his portfolio besides just overseeing Bob Mueller and what he was doing. Again, Rosenstein's role is completely different now that Bill Barr is there. Bill Barr is not recused from the Mueller investigation. So Barr is doing everything that Rosenstein had done before. Rod is, I think, there and trying to help Attorney General Barr in the transition. So I don't really, I don't put anything on this. I don't put one and one and getting two here. I think that That is something I know that we certainly had read that Barr had hoped that he would stay on, Rosenstein would stay on longer. And I think that's probably just what's happened here.
House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler, as you know, sent out 80-plus requests for documents and information related to some of these investigations. He's already said that he's had more responses, or he's had quite a bit of responses to those requests for documents. Given all the pushback that we've seen throughout so much of this process, does that surprise you that he's getting apparently so much cooperation?
No, not really, because if you look at the folks who received subpoenas and entities that received subpoenas, many of them were what we would call neutral third parties that were not necessarily aligned with President Trump or his so-called supporters, however you would want to frame that. That a lot of those were just neutral third parties who were in possession of documents, and so it doesn't surprise me that those folks have come forward. What I'll be interested to see is, and what's going on right now, I should say, is that the staff members in Congress are dealing with the lawyers for those various entities, trying to negotiate the scopes of the subpoenas. Are they too broad? Can they narrow them down? Is all the information that's being sought really relevant? So this is really in the stages where the parties who are being subpoenaed are in a mode of working with Congress to see if they can facilitate the production of documents. It will be with regard to certain individuals, perhaps, and certain documents are being requested where they may have sparring take place. But that's a part of a complex legal process that folks would have to refuse to comply with the subpoena. Congress would then have to go to court to try to force compliance with the subpoena. So what you're seeing right now is both sides. It's in the interest of those who have been subpoenaed and Congress to see if they can come up with something amicable to get the documents produced, as many documents produced, without having to resort to litigation.
Stan Twardy is a former federal prosecutor. Stan, we always appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Up next, Congress, one of many organizations looking into the Boeing jet crashes and the approval processes for the types of planes that went down. A member of the House Transportation Committee joins us right after this.